Hello, heroes. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Shawn Q, and I've got a hell of a show for you today. We're going to be talking to Michael Sharp. He's a dungeon master from New Zealand, and he's running a 5e actual play podcast called Guardians of the Gigaxy. It's pretty interesting. We're going to talk about a few things. But first, I have something I need to talk to you about. I live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and this weekend it is Ottawa Comic Con. We have a really great Ottawa Comic Con this year, especially. Tom Welling's going to be there from Smallville. Sean fucking Astin's going to be there. Yeah, Sean Astin, Mr. Goonies, Rudy, fucking Toy Soldier, fucking Samuel Gamgee, fucking Sean fucking Astin's going to be there. Fucking awesome. We're going to have Kevin Conroy over there, my favorite Batman. There's going to be Ron Perlman and Gina Torres. There's going to be quite a lot of cool people there. Unfortunately, I can't go. It's Mother's Day weekend. And every year, Ottawa Comic Con lands on Mother's Day weekend. Do the organizers not realize that Mother's Day weekend's kind of a big thing? I mean, fanboys and fangirls are also mama's boys and mama's girls, aren't they? I think there's like this cliche about geeks living in their mother's basement till they're like 35. I think that's a cliche for a reason. I think that's a stereotype for a reason. What I'm trying to get at here is that I never go to Comic-Con in Ottawa because I'm busy paying homage and love to all my mothers. Yeah, you heard me right. I said all my mothers. I have 7 mothers. You don't believe me? Let's count them. I have my own mother. Hi, Mom. I love you. Happy Mother's Day. I have her wife, my stepmother, Diane, who we lovingly call Grams. I love you, Grams. Happy Mother's Day. I have my wife. She's a mother. She's not my mother, but she's a mother to my children. That's just as important, maybe more so. I love you, babe. I have my mother-in-law, Patsy. She takes care of us. She makes us dinners. She's a wonderful person, and I love her too. Hi, Patsy. I have my 2 stepmoms. My dad's been married 3 times, so that's 2 extra stepmoms. Hi, Ann. Hi, Mindy. They're probably not listening, and I haven't talked to them in years, so I'm only using them in this bit because it pads the numbers a little bit. And of course, I have my grandmother, my Mamere Lucy. I love you, Mamere. Happy Mother's Day. So listen, how am I supposed to get out to see Tom Welling from Smallville or Sean fucking Astin? How am I supposed to make the trip to the Ernst & Young Center to see Rudy so he can sign a fucking picture for me when I'm spending my whole weekend loving and paying homage to 7 mothers? I don't know. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. Anyways, I'll just get that off my chest. And now here's the interview with Michael Sharp from the Guardians of the Gigaxy. Enjoy. Before we get to the interview with Michael, I wanted to talk to you about our sponsor, Backspun. Backspun is a shop in Cornwall, Ontario, Canada, and it specializes in rare records, rare toys, collectibles, and so much more. If you're looking for a toy that you haven't seen since you were a kid that you'd love to own again, or if you're looking for that rare record by Pearl Jam called Lost Dogs, or maybe you're looking for Gaia's Cradle, a specific Magic the Gathering card that would strengthen your green elf deck. If you're looking for something rare and something collectible, pretty sure that Backspun has it. If you don't have it and you want it, the Vintage Toy Man can get it. Backspun. Visit him at www.thevintagetoyman.com. All right, well, with us today we have Michael Sharp, right from New Zealand, the Dungeon Master of the Guardians of the Gigaxy podcast. It is a Dungeons & Dragons 5e podcast exploring the adventures of a group of misfits trying to escape the Underdark. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Before we start, I wanted to tell you the honest truth of this is that your podcast on the other side of the world has actually given me a little bit of inspiration to start my own thing here.
Awesome.
So the way that this worked is for the last 5 or 6 months, I had been wanting to do something. And we started an online Instagram account, YouTube account, all these things. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do yet. And then I started following you guys, started listening to your podcast. And then I saw a post on Instagram, and it was a picture of your setup in your room.
Oh, yep.
It was just one microphone in the middle of the table hooked up to a laptop. And I thought to myself, it's so simple and they're doing it. In my mind, I thought I have to have all this equipment and everyone needs a microphone. I need all this recording equipment. And you guys were doing your thing with one microphone in the middle of the table. And it was so inspiring. I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm doing the podcast. Even if I have a shitty mic, I'm doing it.
That's exactly the way I thought about it. You know, like you can always get more mics later on, and I mean the disclaimer I put at the beginning of episode 1 saying we're not professional quality yet. It was a choice. Like I wanted to get into it and, you know, put our content out there because I play with a lot of those players quite a bit and we have great games, and I just wanted to make something that I could share with people. And yeah, the one mic in the middle of the table I thought would give it a round the table feel, so like you're there with us.
It definitely does.
And,
it definitely does. Yeah. I really appreciated the bare bones of it, and I thought this is exactly what any of us around the whole world can do. And it's also one of the reasons why I reached out to you immediately when I had the idea to start talking to other live streamers and podcasters about their games at home. I immediately sent you a message and said, I want to interview them primarily because it was such a simple idea, but something that really struck home with me. I can literally do this because look, they're doing it too.
Yep, exactly. I see. You know, I listen to a lot of D&D podcasts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to the Adventure Zone. The one that I listen to most, and I'm a bit of a fanboy for them, is Drunks and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very high quality, but the beginning, they, you know, didn't know how to play properly and all of that, and it was a real round the table feeling and a lot of jokes, even though they play in completely different states.
Right.
And what I wanted to do was to take that idea and have it so we're all sitting around the table, we're all there. I mean, there's parts where the audio is completely garbled because everyone's laughing or talking over each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something we have to work on. But
of course.
At the same time, I like the idea of it being like a group of friends playing, and I don't think you can get that through playing over. Well, you can, but not to the same levels as playing over Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and things like that.
I definitely, well, being an outsider listening in, I was going to say looking in, but listening in, it really comes across that way. You are right that there are times when everyone at the table is laughing and you can't really hear what's happening, but you know what's happening because you can feel it in everyone's laughter. And I myself as well listen to quite a lot of podcasts and live streams, and but there is definitely something special when you hear them, the people all around the table together in the same room, and when you know, even if you can't really tell that's the case, you can feel it on the recording. So I appreciate that, and I think that the listeners appreciate that as well.
Oh, that's really good to hear, because the one thing I've found through interacting with the community is you get people like yourself and on Instagram, Rolling at 20. He has been so supportive with feedback and everything, but as a whole, the amount of listeners we get giving feedback is very small, and we're like, are we doing good? And then of course we get people who reach out to us and tell us, I can't wait for the next episode, or why did you do that to my favorite character?
Right.
Or...
Yeah, it's great. That's literally the dream, right? Like, if you can break some hearts along the way, for sure.
I mean, you're up to episode 8. So
I'm actually, I just finished episode 10, so Yeah, I powered through
Catch
some
me up.
today just to be able to get ready for all this. I had hoped that I was going to be fully caught up, but to be honest, I listen to so much. I consume so
Yeah.
much in a day. I have like a 2.5 hour commute to and back from work. That's like an hour and some there, an hour and some back. So I'm always on my headphones listening to something. And there are a few non D&D related podcasts that I listen to as well, and some of
Yeah.
them are an absolute must. As soon as that one that podcast comes up, I have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Even if literally, even if I am interviewing one the person that night, their podcast has to sit on the sidelines for a little bit because there's something else that's super interesting. So
I know exactly what you mean. I have automatic downloads for podcasts, and as soon as they're out, I listen to them no
yeah,
matter what.
it's such a weird thing to look up your own podcast on Spotify or on iTunes,
It is.
to see
It
that symbol
is.
on there is mind blowing. Like I haven't even done anything yet, really. Like I've recorded two really crappy podcasts and uploaded them, and I feel like I did something. Like I feel pretty proud of it. Like
Yeah, it's a weird sense of pride and nervousness mixed together. When we first started uploading them, I was checking the numbers every day. Multiple times a day. Like, oh, we got another listener. Oh.
right,
Now I have to be reminded to check it just because one, I'm really busy, to tell you the truth. Um, and two, the nervousness is sort of dissipated and it's replaced with, okay, we're moving in the right direction. I want to make sure my content is great.
right. Let's shift gears here for a second. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at your with your own personal D&D story. We all have it, right? We all have a story of
Yeah,
how we
yeah.
started, and how did you start with all this stuff?
So my first tabletop experience was Dark Heresy, 40K,
Okay.
which is loosely based off 3.5, very loosely.
Right.
That I played a tech priest who was obsessed with bombs and built a bomb in his chest, and had a spear with a grenade attached, and ended up sacrificing himself. And that was fun. Heartbreaking at moments, but we played with my friend's younger brother, who I actually ended up playing my first D&D experience with, and a couple of friends at my job, which was a comedy bar. So it was all about having fun. Like the rules sort of took a backseat if it was going to be fun. And yeah, I think that's where I fell in love with it. Then we moved on to 3.5, and I played a cleric. I had to drop it low because I went overseas for a few months, and they continued the campaign without me. My character died again just before I left, and yeah, then I ended up getting into 5th edition and dungeon mastering it. That's when I started DMing.
Is this
And
campaign that you're running your first DMing, or did you DM before that?
no, I've been DMing for about 7 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I have a very loose style of DMing, which I prepare very little because all my players always deviate. I can't railroad them.
Right.
I try, I can't. They blow up the tracks, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think most DMs are like that. I think most DMs have to be versatile.
yeah,
I myself am definitely a more of an improv DM.
yeah,
I'm actually running a Waterdeep Dragon Heist right now for my group, and it's literally a module that has everything in it. And we're not even doing the module. Like one of my players asked me 2 weeks ago, "Are we even playing the module? Like what's happening?" And I'm like, "I literally we're not playing it right now. You guys are doing your own thing. You guys are on off the rails and doing whatever you want. I'll eventually bring you back to it, but for right now, you're having fun, so that it's all that matters."
Oh, definitely, definitely. Like I also DM for a group at Adventure League. That's
Oh,
how I
okay.
met some of the players on the cast, and I'm doing Princes of the Apocalypse, and we're doing the sort of introductory adventures to level them up to 3, and it's been 8 sessions, and they're just at level 2. Yes, and there's already been a cannibalism.
Oh, wow.
A half-orc accidentally ate a missing little girl that was being cooked by a goblin and half-ogre. They've dueled with a ghost who was guarding a tomb, which they dishonored. And basically, they had a really somber moment when the girl missing, saying they'd found her and she was eaten. It took them a couple of sessions to realize that the player had actually eaten the little girl.
Oh, right.
But when they caught on, there was we can't tell the town that you ate her. They love us in town. We're the heroes.
The heroes, right. Yeah, the hungry heroes. So what do you for your podcast game? Do you have a set day that you play, or is it just whenever can get together?
Yeah, we record on Sundays. It's usually 2 sessions, and so we play for sort of 2.5 to 3 hours, and I edit it down. But it's usually every second week, or if I want to build up a bit of a backlog, which I've been doing, we have been doing 4 sessions in one sitting, because I take care of all of the technical elements as we're playing as well. It can be a bit overwhelming for 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, but it's enjoyable.
So you sit down for a period of time that Sunday, and you may record up to 4 actual separate sessions.
4 actual episodes.
Right.
We record them in episodes. Yeah, and it's always. I think you can tell when we've been playing in consecutive order, because everyone will be really good on the recap.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I prefer it when they're not really good on the recap.
Actually, that's a great segue. Let's talk about your recap. I love this. This is one of the homebrew things that I've found that is so intriguing. I love this so much. Normally, when I sit down to play, I say, "Okay, who can tell me what happened next time?" And it always ends up being me telling everyone what happened or last time, I should say. But you tell us what you do for your recap.
So this is actually stolen from another podcast. Yeah, it's the Drunks and Dragons podcast. It's called the Bapison Rule.
Okay.
Which was one of their fans came up with the rule for them, and they've been going for almost 8 years, I think. Something like 310 episodes.
That's crazy.
But I can't even imagine getting up to that.
Yeah.
And I adopted it into my homebrew games just because it made it really easy to see who's actually listening and who's, and what they're picking up is important, so I can emphasize on what's actually important to them while we're playing, and adjust to that. And it's just become such an integral part of how our group operates normally that it made it onto the podcast.
Yeah, that's great. I think it was a few episodes ago, so it would have been like episode 6. I think you had you had them roll at the beginning, so you have them roll a d20, and whoever rolls the highest number is the person who has to do the recap from the episode before. And I can't remember if it was Lay or if it was I can't remember who it was, but someone asked, "Do I do this in character or do I do this as myself?" And I think they did it in character, and that's fantastic because that character will have a different perspective of what happened to them than another character will, right? According to Bubbles, things went great, but according to everyone else, Bubbles tried to kill them. So it's
we have adapted that rule further to if you roll a 1, you do it as Lolf.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
And I allowed them to let for one if they rolled a 20, I did it. Then I realized the odds were stacked against me with 4 people rolling.
Yeah.
That and the amount of 20s they get in the pre-game is ridiculous. So I cut that rule immediately. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not doing the recap every week now.
Yeah. As a side thing, it's astonishing how many 20s come out in a game.
Oh, it's amazing.
Like, you would think that it has just as much chance as any other number coming up on this dice, and it should, because it's literally a random dice. But those 20s hit you, man. Especially if you're a DM and you don't want a 20 to hit, they hit.
Oh, they do. Like when Jerry was scaling down the wall and just got a 20, and I'm just like, oh my god, what can I do?
Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
Exactly. They just get 20s at the most appropriate moments for themselves, but not for me.
That's D&D though, right? Like, that's always been D&D. That dice is it's such a magical thing that happens sometimes. I played in a campaign. My buddy and I, Dwayne, we lived together. We were roommates, and we didn't have anybody else to play with, so we played just with each other. And he played 2 NPCs and he ran the game, and I played 2 characters. I played so we did this dungeon that he did. And we played that campaign for years, just the 2 of us. We got to the end, okay? We got to the end, and he said, we're going to turn this into an epic level campaign, and we're going to bring other players in. So now I was playing one of those 2 characters. The other character had retired, and I was surrounded by 4 people at a table, and now we were fighting his 2 NPCs who had become the big bad in the game. Okay?
Oh, awesome.
And literally, the first round at the beginning of the day was his NPC and my player character, who had been buddies for 20 levels. His NPC was a wizard, a necromancer, and cast a spell on me, and I rolled a 1 on my saving throw. And I died, and I sat there. They were all at my house, and I sat there for 8 hours watching them play my game that I had spent 20 levels playing, and these other players played in the finale of the story while I was dead. So sometimes that dice will fuck you.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes it will. But yeah, that's sort of why I included the if Bubbles rolls a 1, or Ataria rolls a 1, then with the saving throw.
Right.
And yeah, the 3 chances. It's come close a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's I love that rule, but at the same time, it's gonna kill him.
Oh yeah, it's deadly. Because it's gonna happen. You think it's not? Oh, it won't happen, but it'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, I 7 where Bubbles mutilated Boja, and that whole scene. Ataria was on the edge of, like, I broke her.
Right.
I broke her as a person. She was on the edge of, to, like, a mixture of laughing and crying, just because, not over mutilating Boja.
No.
Over, like, the possibility of killing Jimjar.
Right.
Which, I now know how to break her if I need to.
Right.
Just to kill Jimjar in the most horrific way possible.
Right. Well, if my memory serves me right, she was the first player character to make friends with that NPC, and has carried that through this whole time as being not just protective of him, but quite friendly together. Like they are quite good friends in the story.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. They're best buddies. You know, they're sort of like Ataria has a very different headcanon to the rest of us of what Jimjar actually looks like.
Right.
But everyone else is slightly terrified by Jimjar because of how I've described him as, you know, never blinking and just this massive smile on his face all the time. And
literally the Joker.
Yeah. And she imagines him more like a Care Bear. And Yeah, I think we discuss it in a later episode of her headcanon, and everyone else then describes their headcanon, and no,
Yeah,
it does not match up.
that's funny. That's hilarious. You had mentioned earlier about the laughing at the table.
Yes.
And we were talking about how I was saying that I really love those moments on your podcast, how when everyone laughs, it seems to happen quite a bit in the sense that your players at the table get along really well. Were they all friendly beforehand, or did you cultivate them from different spots?
So um, Byron and Natalia knew each other
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. I knew Byron from uni.
Okay.
Nick has been my friend ever since I moved to New Zealand, which was when I was 12. So I've known him for, God, 17 years.
That's yeah. That's
And Lay, I met Lay and basically brought them all together, introducing Lay to D&D and seeing what happened.
Are they all fairly new to role playing, or they have all their own a personal D&D story, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Lay and Atari are probably the newest, but they are the most consistent players, so they play most often.
Mm-hmm.
Nick had the least experience. He's played over the years a couple of times, but it'll be for a session or two, and then he he has a habit of going through phases where he gets super busy
Right.
and can't commit to sessions, and that's actually why we had to sort of write him out of the cast.
Right.
It wasn't at the point he was where he wanders off into the Underdark. That was completely accidental.
Right.
His character thought it was going to be a way up to the others,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing he was just wandering off into the Underdark, and he was basically told me he couldn't come to the next two sessions, and I'm like, well, we need to like talk about this, and
Right.
yeah, he was like, yeah, I think you might need another player just because I don't want to let you guys down.
Of
And
course.
yeah, but who knows? Your croc could be alive, he could be dead, he could be wandering the Underdark.
I
We don't know.
mean, as a good friend and a good DM will always let a character be alive if they want to come back to the table.
Yeah,
However, the Underdark is a very dangerous
it is.
place.
It is. And he was level 3 when they wandered in.
Yeah, yeah, no. You need friends at that level. You need
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Um, I wanted to also mention that you are playing quite fast and loose with that tarot card deck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
The deck of many things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that the players at the table are not necessarily well versed in the really bad aspects of this deck of cards.
Ataria was not. I think Byron was like laughing, like, you don't know what this is, do you? You
Yeah,
don't know what this is.
yeah,
And but her fucking dumb luck, she draws 5 of the best cards.
yeah. That's literally the most insane thing I've ever seen or heard. I
Yep.
guess it's literally the crazy. I couldn't believe that she had grabbed more than one.
Yeah, yeah. I was. Well, I mean, I was trying to entice her into, maybe getting another curse or something like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I didn't think she'd go for, what was it, 3 and then drawing 2 more.
yeah.
It was insane. And then Byron with Boja draws cards after and doesn't get the same luck.
No, he did not, did he? Yeah. I liked the later on the admission of Jim Jar saying to Jerry that he had hoped that she would pull the one where she gets imprisoned in the abyssal plane. That's too funny to me. That just a straight up admission. I was really hoping for the worst possible card for you.
Yeah, well, it would be pretty funny. I love the idea of how my players play their characters to a T. Like, because I didn't tell them the setting they were going into or anything. I'm just like, make a character you think would be fun to play. And Lay came up with this lizard person who essentially functions in a way that most sentient things don't. So it's all about survival, all about what is important driven by fear and hunger and all of those sort of basic needs and emotions, rather than a sense of honor or a sense of duty or like ideology.
Right.
It's and having her run alongside with characters who, like Yakrok, who is this honor-bound paladin, and Boja, who gets tested on being lawful good.
Right.
And Bubbles, who is just like, I want to make friends with everything.
Right, yeah.
And just seeing them stick to their sort of character's philosophy is just awesome.
How did they feel when you pulled a Elder Scrolls Oblivion on them and started them in a prison in the Underdark?
They were pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
They were like, well, where's our gear? And I'm just like, well, you have to find it. Also, you can't cast higher than cantrips if you don't have your spell focus.
Right.
So go find those. And I couldn't believe how long it took them to get a plan of escaping.
Right.
Because I thought, they would have rallied all the group together, the NPCs, and even talking to the other player characters, they didn't do for the first episode, really. I think the only ones who sort of communicated between themselves were Yakrok and Bubbles.
I think so.
And,
I think there were slight interactions between the others, but no more than a passing stare or a threatening glance or something.
Yep. And I just love the way that they sort of eventually tried a few futile attempts at escape.
I can understand their hesitancy. Like a level 1 character fully armored in the world is susceptible to dying at any moment. Let alone one who is a prisoner with no gear. I could understand their fear of death.
Yeah. I was wondering whether, because I was using the Out of the Abyss start from the module, which is my favorite module ever. It's just so weird and sandboxy in a way. Like, you basically go on a tour of the Underdark, but I decided I'm just going to have the prison start, and then the rest of the world is actually going to be my own creation.
Yeah, that's the other question I wanted to ask you about. This is a homebrew campaign, but does it take place in Forgotten Realms?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So it takes place in a world called the known Gigaxy.
Okay.
Which is a homage to Gary Gygax, of course.
Obviously.
So we've talked about a few things. Like, we wanted to include all of the races that no one ever plays, the classes. I didn't put any restrictions on that, as long as it was Unearthed Arcana or they passed off a homebrew with me. I was fine with it, because I really wanted the players to make the world their own. So the capital was actually named by Nick, the dwarven capital, Nelthiad. Once I realized that none of the players wanted to play as a human, I decided to make humans a minority in the world. So the idea that it goes against most high fantasy, where humans are numerous and industrious and all of this, and they adapt to all situations. In our world, they tried to do that and were banded against by the other races and taken down. So now that they're small nomadic sort of tribes are left, there's no human civilization per se.
Right.
And dwarves are by far the most numerous and dominant. They have Nelthiad itself. I have the headcanon of it as Minas Tirith in Gondor, but much bigger, and what's visible from the surface is only the tip of the iceberg. It goes way further down, and they don't have police or guards or things like that. They have orders of paladins, which actually work as law enforcement, and they can be, an order of 4 people, but they all sort of answer to one Grand Master.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that. I like taking tropes and flipping them on their head. The human being in a minority thing is quite it's quite tasty.
Yeah, and it allows for if players do play as a human, it's quite an exotic thing.
Right. Yeah, and people
like,
will
a human,
look. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen one before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. Are you taking a lot of your cues of the Drow and Underdark from what has already been established about their society in like Forgotten Realms and Salvatore and stuff, or are you kind of riffing on your own?
A lot of it, yes. I do have plans of them making bizarre alliances, and yeah, their relationship with Lolth is a little bit different. Like, it's still a matriarchal society, but Driders have a higher status than they do in the Forgotten Realms. And yeah, my plan is to make it recognizable as Dark Elf, but make it our own version of them.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. They're such an interesting race.
Yeah, and having them as Bogan Australians is just the icing on the cake.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So what do you see going forward with the podcast? What do you like? What would you like it to be within your in your perfect dreams? What would you like it to do?
That is a good question. Well, I'd like to reach as many people as possible, because I think our content is great, and now we've recorded up to episode 18 so far, and it means they are at the point where they're going to start exploring the world around, and I'd like the community's input on that. I have Rolanet on Instagram. He's actually written a couple of little side adventures that we can use.
Oh, that's great.
Which is great. Yeah, they're really fun little side adventures, and I just love to see where these characters go and how they're going to deal with Lolth and Mistress Ilvara's invasion.
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea how they're going to do it. It's not I don't have faith in them. It's they could just mess it up.
Well, that's literally all of role playing in a nutshell. Is the players could just mess it all up.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll try and guide them in the right direction, hopefully. But I'm trying. We have our Patreon campaign as well, which is called Mordenheimer's Tome of Bros, or Morty's Tome of Bros for short. Which, again, a nod to Gary Gygax and his content. And in that, we basically create characters at a certain level. It's a rotating DM, so I DM the first one, and the big bad was Lolth, and everyone creates characters at a certain level. Then they create a list of instructions on how to roleplay that character, and then we put all the names in a hat, and they're drawn out, and everyone plays someone else's character.
That sounds super fun.
It's insane. Lay and Ataria made a bet that whoever died first, because the whole concept of Morty's Tome of Bros is it's a list of names of adventurers who have died fighting the baddest things out there. So they went into it knowing you're not going to survive these. Have fun making characters that are going to, mess with other players. Right. Like, just mess with them. And they made a bet to play a race called Equiqui, which are tiny owlbear type.
Oh, okay.
Imagine Ewoks meet owls.
Sweet.
And that's what an Equiqui is.
Yeah.
And the first person out of them to die got sole rights to it. Ataria played a wizard with, I think they were level 15, and it had something like 50 to 80 hit points. It was bad.
Yeah.
And Lei played a Warforged with an AC of 20.
Holy jeez.
So, and a lot of HP, and I couldn't hit her.
Right.
At all. So, Ataria won the rights to play a Equiqui.
That's cool.
Yep. So she is the only person who, in the podcast, will ever be able to play one.
If you were to give someone who wanted to start their own podcast like yours any advice, what would you tell them?
I would say the best way to do it is to just do it. Like, you can spend a lot of time preparing and wondering, like, what will we do in this situation, or do we have like the right setup? Or, I mean, we changed venues 3 times to find like the perfect setup.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can sort of tell in the sound quality. The ones around episode 10 to 12, they're in a location which is a massive room and it's kind of echoey, but yeah, just get stuck into it, really, because you're only going to learn through doing it, and yeah, in small increments.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like I said to you earlier, it was an inspiration to see that you guys were starting it with bare bones, and now I'm doing the same thing. So thanks a lot, Michael, for that, and thanks a lot for this conversation. If people want to reach out and get a hold of you, where can they find you?
So they can find us on Instagram at Guardians of the Gigaxy, or if they want to reach me personally, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at msharpwares. There's MSHARPWAZZ, and that's for both Instagram and Twitter. I'm really hard to find on Facebook, so there's no lot going on there. But if you do want to find me, it's Brosif Delacroix is my name on Facebook. I don't use my actual name. And yeah, I mean, if you find me on Instagram or Twitter, you'll be able to find the rest of the guys on there.
Excellent.
I'll be able to point you in the right direction of your favorite cast member.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being with us today. This was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll try to do this again sometime when the characters get a little farther along their adventure.
Yeah, I would love to, and thanks for having me on, Shawn.
Well, that was the interview with Michael. We had a great chat that night. It was really, really fun to talk to him. Halfway around the world, I had just put the girls to bed. It was 9 o'clock at night, and it was noon where he was the next day. So it was like I was talking to the future. It was kind of cool. Hell of an interesting guy, and a hell of an interesting podcast that he's got going on there. If you want to check his stuff out, you can find him Guardians of the Gigaxy on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. You may have noticed a couple of mysterious liquid sounds going on in the show. I forgot how to use the mute button and was drinking a coffee. We had a couple of technical difficulties during the chat where you can kind of not hear a couple of things he said. I tried to edit around it. At the end there, he's giving you some idea of where you could find him and track him down online. I'll have all that information in the show notes, so you can find him that way. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the show. Take care, and we'll see you next time, heroes.